Welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. It is the 12th of March, 2025, and as you probably already know, it's a very active weather pattern. Big storms, and especially the one coming up here in the next few days, is going to deepen rapidly in the Central Plains, and it causes a multi-day severe weather outlook pattern. Blizzard conditions in the northern U.S., heavy rain potential areas that will progress right along, lots of wind and associated wildfire danger, and warmth for the next several days out ahead of that system. And then we'll also look down the road and continue to see this oscillating pattern of warm, cold, and also just a progressive storm pattern aloft that will keep us busy here for the next couple of weeks at least. So let's take a look at, as we always do, the visible satellite loop. Beautiful cyclone out in the Atlantic. And you can see that spinning circulation right there. Beautiful to look at. This looks like lake effect snow, but it's actually just banded clouds, a little bit of precipitation in that. We've got this storm trying to take shape here over the southern plains. There's a severe weather risk associated with that. We'll review that in a minute. You can see the mountain snows. That's if it doesn't move on this map, it's snow. And also a lot of precipitation now coming ashore in the west, and they have several rounds coming their way. At the 500 millibar level, we have Vort Maxes right here. We can consolidate that into one probably, and that's what's kind of lifting the air out ahead of this system. And there's pretty good moisture. I'll show you that here in just a second. Meanwhile, this trough of low pressure is a short wave, is what we call it. A longer wave is visible just off screen here. That's what's coming ashore in the west, and that's what's going to lead to a monster low pressure development. I did want to show you here, just while we have this up, dew points. So one of the issues, there's a reason why I'm doing this system has access to maybe some 50, maybe some upper 50-degree dew points going through here, surging out ahead of that, as you can see. But one of the factors for this upcoming severe weather outbreak is the fact that our moisture is a little starved. So what's going to happen is, as this system moves along, winds are going to come in behind it, and you see dew points are much lower in the high plains. We're talking about teens and even 20s and 30s, getting closer, but that's going to wrap around, and it's going to affect the return of moisture out ahead of the larger system coming up. So that's a big deal. And here's a look at the vorticity, and now we're color coding it. So you can see this is a very well defined sort of a neutral short wave moving through Texas, and we'll show you the severe weather coming up. Well, this is the slight risk area for severe weather in anticipation of that short wave and the moisture that I showed you riding up here. So from Dallas over to Shreveport up to Fort Smith is a slight risk, which is out of the 5 levels, it's 2 on the list. 1 would be the green. And so, this area here, probably large hail is the main factor with these storms. Not much of a tornado potential with this moisture-starved system, but large hail is certainly a possibility. This moves to Thursday, tomorrow, and we have just kind of this not moderate, I should say, but marginal risk of severe weather through the central and southern portions of Alabama. And then the big kahuna, this is the one that people have been talking about now, including me, since the last weekend. This is Friday's outlook. So we have the enhanced 3 out of 5 risk there through eastern and western Missouri, a large chunk of Illinois, and large portions of northern Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee. There's Nashville right there. I live right here, so I'm watching that. By the way, I'm looking at the latest model data. I may just grab a quick chase out to this area right here on Friday. We'll see if it continues to look that way. But what are the hazards here? It's a wind event primarily. But we do have the possibility of tornadoes. In fact, if we look back through the history and we looked at the pattern matching, analog pattern matching, we see that there is a 10% tornado risk with a pattern that has looked similar to this if we look back in the records from north central Arkansas all the way down to parts of Mississippi. Interesting. So I'm considering the chase there, and I think there's some precedent to have that as a possibility. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Again, the systems are moisture starved, but what I was looking at here was favorable low dew point spreads and pretty good shear, but we'll see if that holds up. And then just generally overall, the severe weather, centered on Friday, has this back a little bit more covering southwest Missouri and eastern portions of Kansas and Oklahoma. But we'll see if that comes to pass, because right now the real significant risk of severe weather, as outlined by the SPC, is more in that area, actually a little more east in that. So we'll see how that works out. That's just pattern matching. It doesn't mean that if we look at previous patterns, that's the way it's going to exactly work with this system, because you can't look at all the variables either. So this is Saturday. This could be a sleeper of a system. Again, we have a 30% possibility of severe weather as this system kind of stretches out and the front kind of eases through here. So this could be pretty significant for all of Alabama, a good chunk of Mississippi, all the way up to Atlanta, covering much of Georgia as well. That's for Saturday, and this doesn't stop. On Sunday, we have a severe weather risk from Pennsylvania all the way down to the panhandle of Florida. And lastly, and I didn't know how to categorize this really, but as that low develops, we have a wildfire risk through much of Texas for the 15th. But prior to the 15th, we also have just strong winds and dry conditions in that part of the world as well. So the climate folks have taken a look at this, and we have hazardous weather outlooks for heavy rain, including this area on March 15th and this area on March 16th. And if it looks like that matches the severe weather pattern, it usually does, except it's probably a little more north and west of where the severe weather would be. Let's take a look at the QPC, the quantitative precipitation. This would all be rain on this map here, but we're looking at 1.5 to 2 inch totals through parts of Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and offshore here through Sunday, really. If you go out west, one wave of precipitation after another. So we're talking about 7-inch totals, if not maybe 10-inch rain totals through coastal areas of Washington, Oregon, and of course the snow in the higher elevations here. So this is just a result of, this is a 5-day additive. So this is a result of several waves of precipitation coming ashore, including the one that's doing so as I'm recording this. Well, this is a blend of model data, the anticipated snow on the back end of that very deep low that's developing in the Central Plains. It's looking like, if you see this lighter blue area here, that's over 6 inches. Basically, the color is 1 inch. So that's a pretty significant band of snow through eastern parts of the Dakotas and a good chunk of western Minnesota. That's through midnight on Saturday. Mountain snows are showing up too, which is pretty typical. Even west of what I'm showing you here, just assume if you live in a higher elevation out west, you're going to get a lot of snow. And this is the impact. So the winter storm impact is moderate here. And the reason for that is because the winds that are whipping around like this, even though these warnings haven't been issued yet, I can guarantee you there are going to be blizzard warnings up through that part of the world here issued, probably not today, but maybe as early as tomorrow. Pattern shift, I went too early on that. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Well, let's look at the high temperature forecast. The colors are how far above normal temperatures are. You're looking at 70s all the way up to Minneapolis, St. Paul, almost to Green Bay, Chicago, and Dubuque, Iowa, both in the 70s. 77 in Springfield, Illinois. So lots of warm temperatures, and you can see the fighting line has been drawn with that upper level system. Much cooler. By the way, the Star is the coolest high temperature forecast, and that looks like just south of Grand Junction. And then the warmest is down here, 90-degree temperatures in South Texas. Move 2 days ahead to Sunday. Big change. Obviously, the warmth ahead of the system is going to be prevalent in New England and much of the Northeast. We're going to take a setback in temperature through much of the western and central U.S., but already by Tuesday, it builds back again with 60s and 70s all throughout this part of the world. And this is this oscillating pattern that we continue to talk about. Let's take a look at how that low pressure area is going to develop over the next couple of days. Let's look at the surface map. It's going to show that deep low, and it's going to show areas of precipitation. Precipitation type is also on this map. And this is the NAM model, so let's just take a look at it. And we're starting, this was initialized at 1 p.m. today. I got to remember the daylight time. It used to be noon, now it's 1 Central. Anyway, so we just have this weak area of low pressure here in the Central Plains. That's associated with what I was showing you with the severe weather potential and the hail potential. there's that. So now if we look forward here and just kind of run this in, before we move ahead, notice that the west coast is getting slammed with more precipitation, valley and lower elevation rain and higher elevation snow. So that's one round there. And as we go forward, you'll see that advances in pretty quickly, lasts through most of Thursday. And this is the storm that's going to develop in the plains, by the way. And you can see snow and even a little bit of thunder and rain in New Mexico. Now another surge of precipitation is coming ashore here. This is Friday. Actually midnight, just after midnight on Thursday going into Friday. So round after round of heavy precipitation there. And then finally this storm takes shape in the central plains. Here we go. So look at the isobars packed in right here. This is why there is a fire risk down in that area, because there are drought conditions and very extremely strong winds. Wind gusts probably 70 miles per hour are possible down there in the panhandle of Texas with this developing storm, and of course the dry conditions. And then once again, the west coast is getting slammed with more rain and snow. It's a very dynamic pattern we're talking about here for sure. This is Friday morning. And then as we go through Friday afternoon, you'll see that things get really windy here across the central plains as this low continues to deepen. And the tighter these isobars are packed together, the stronger the wind, and they're blowing across the isobars like this and like this and like this and like this, blowing toward the center of that low, which the air above it is being rapidly evacuated by a very favorable upper level system. So this low is really going to deepen. A lot of March lows do this, but this one is really good at it. And it's being all kinds of weather hazards, as you already have seen with this low. And then we'll go ahead here. Now, this is the thunderstorm line that develops in an arc right through here and right through here. So I think this is mainly going to be a wind gust threat with some hail. There might be an isolated tornado in this line, but that is the issue we were talking about. It was the moisture return. So that is a limiting factor for severe weather, so that's good. But this will be a wind machine with the individual storms, on top of the fact that the ambient winds with the low are already pretty gusty. So it's a very hazardous condition. And then the rain finally begins to break out a little bit more as we head into the extended forecast. You can see there. Now that's just after actually that's Saturday evening around 7 o'clock. This low is still producing heavy snows in the Minnesota area, parts of the Dakotas, at least a half foot of snow, if not more. And then we start to see these heavy rain areas here, as you saw in the outline of the forecast. Now, this particular model stops at just after midnight on Saturday. So, again, it doesn't go as far into the future as it needs to, but you can again see more waves of precipitation coming in ashore, this time a little bit further north into Oregon and parts of Washington state. And again, this is just the NAM North American model, only goes out 84 hours. So if we were to extend that, and I'm going to do that right here, let's see what the upper levels are doing a little bit longer, let's say about a week into the future. Now we're going to switch models. This is the European ensemble model. So it's a way of averaging model runs together to kind of eliminate spurious, output that may or may not be believable. So this is the 500 millibar flow right here. And first of all, you see that disturbance down here in northern Mexico. That is what's producing that slight risk of severe weather out ahead of it through portions of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. And you can also see the other storm clearly coming ashore right here with its strong winds coming off the Pacific into the much of the western and northwestern U.S. Lots of waves of precipitation there. So let's move this forward here and see how this develops. This upper level system is called a negative tilt trough. That's because it is tilted this way, and we have a speed max coming around the base. So, if the moisture were more available, if we had higher dew points and deeper moisture, this would be a much different storm system, by the way. Not that it's not going to be potent, but if you were to displace this, maybe a month ahead or even 2 months ahead when we had lots of humidity and higher dew points, it would be a different ballgame altogether. But anyway, that's a pretty dynamic system, and of course that's going to cradle that low right there and really cause a deepening of that surface low pressure system and of all the wind that's going around it, of course. And then we're going to go forward here and see what happens. So then we are looking at another ridge of high pressure developing. So the time frame on this one right here, That's about lunchtime on Monday. But another storm, another trough of low pressure is coming into the west. So it's a very progressive weather pattern. I've been talking about that for the last couple of videos. So we're seeing a parade, one boxcar after another here of storms coming ashore. So this next one starts to get its act together right around, that's almost, let's go to Wednesday morning right there. So that looks a lot like the one we just showed you. The winds are not as strong, but this many hours out, this many days out, 6, there's room for this to be a potent storm as well. The difference here is this one is more of a neutral or a slightly positive tilt storm. Still, it is something to watch out for, and that would be affecting the central U.S. through the middle part of next week. And the final thing I'll show you, and this is going on down the road toward late March, so the 23rd through the 26th, another heavy rain episode set up, and that's that system I was just showing you on the ensemble output, and more rains coming ashore March 20th through the 22nd in the west. Lots of weather to talk about. If you're in a hazard area, stay safe, and I'll have another update on this storm at least on Friday. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.